Hi, hello.
Hello, hello.
Hello.
Good morning.
Good morning.
Morning.
Morning, all.
It's 3 after, so I think we should go ahead and get started. The first thing on the agenda is release 1.9 planning. Yogesh?
Yes. Yeah, thanks, Kenneth. So I think regarding this 1.9 release, we have, based on whatever tests we have done on 1.8, whatever the benchmarks we have performed on 1.8 as compared to 1.9, I think the results overall looks better in 1.9. Of course, some small issues here and there, but I think with regards to performance and with regards to the C++ migration, because maybe there are some files which are renamed at CPP, but there are certain data structures also that has been changed. So let's say if there is any issue which is reported on 1.8, might not be, maybe it's not fixable and might not be carried forward. So I was thinking that there's a need to go to 1.9, and I just wanted to know the opinion because it's like around 1.5 to 2 months of effort. We have to keep 2 releases in parallel, like the master release, and I'll not say master release. I would say that the master track and 1.9 track has to go in parallel. All the release artifacts has to be prepared, and of course the testing, benchmarking. So it's a bit of involved effort, for the number of folks needed also becomes double. but I just wanted to know because I think we have to make 1.9 release because of various reasons. So just wanted to put forward any questions, comments on that same. I guess first is we have to do 1.9 release. If that is agreed, then the second step is when to release. So I'm just thinking, even if we start from next week, it will be around 2 months, roughly, then we will be in place. And there are other hurdles, but I think first we need to agree on these two things.
Yeah, I mean, if I can give my opinion on do we need to go to 1.9? Yes, we need to go to 1.9 because we need to have a predictable roadmap for Magma. Otherwise, we will lose the serious adapters for Magma, the serious users, if we don't have predictable roadmap. When do we need to cut over to move to 1.9? I mean, we can have this discussion, but I would say that very soon we will have more than 8 months since 1.8 was released. So we need to have at least one release per year.
Yes.
This should be a solid target for us.
Yeah, so should I, as a next step, should I raise a GitHub issue to track it, or should I post in the Slack? I think just want to make sure how should we track that. So, okay, that was, I think in general, we have an agreement that 1.9 has to be taken forward, right? I think that we all agree.
One question, what would actually be the new features in 1.9?
Yeah, actually, on a very high scale, I would say the biggest change which has gone in is the C++ migration. And in C++ migration also was divided into two parts. One is, data structure optimization of the hash tables, which was the biggest change. And the second part is like, renaming the CPP, renaming of the files and some small things here and there. So the biggest feature which will go in is the C++ migration. And the second thing which we targeted from 5G perspective was the Docker-based testing. Like in 1.8, of course, we did some basic sanity, but in 1.9, we have more coverage for Docker based on 5G. Of course, there is no new feature, but these are the two main things. And apart from them, there are two critical issues which has gone in. One is the 5G NSA. It's, of course, it's a defect fix, but the 5G NSA is now started working with, at least whatever I heard from the community members is on the Tier 1 radios, there was a defect fix which has gone in. And most of the operators from 4G, the first step they are taking is for the 5G NSA. So that is, although fix is small, but overall the feature becomes big. And some minor things in 5G, whatever the issues which were reported in 1.8, those have been covered. So two main features, C++ migration, 5G NSA, and plus a couple of critical bug fixes on top of 1.8.
Okay,
So
thank you.
Should I, yeah, maybe I think I should document it somewhere so that,
Yeah, that's a good
we
idea.
can take it as a base. And yeah, so maybe I'll raise a GitHub issue and track it, issue or task, whichever category it is, and I'll post it in the TSC channel.
Security issue 138 we also is also relevant. I'm going to post the link to the channel. Not everybody can access that, but it would also be valuable to ship that.
Yeah. Okay, so I think we have good content for 1.9. Yeah, so I don't know how much I can elaborate with this, but at least
Yes.
maybe I'll put one-liners I can get it reviewed by you, and then I can put it in the task, or maybe you can add on the task, whatever you think is reasonable.
Okay, and if you want, you can bring it up in the security channel in Slack, which is
Sure.
as control.
Absolutely, absolutely. So let me do this. I'll create a GitHub task, and I'll post it in the TSC. I'll share all the details, and then we can take the call and we can have the discussions there. I think one issue on top of 1.9 was, in general, last time someone from community electronics came forward and did the scale test of 4G. I think that also we have to figure out if this time they are going to do it. So yeah, I'll put all these questions in the GitHub task and share it for a general feedback.
And I think we need, it would be good to have an owner for every part, like also orchestrator and NMS should have should be explicitly covered in the release process. I think they were underrepresented in 1.8 release.
Yes, yes.
And
So
also
as-
other parts that we don't want to test should potentially be excluded, or we should discuss to reduce scope.
Yes, yes.
Yeah, I
Yeah.
mean, we need to create a list of what things we are not going to test for 1.9 and see what this impacts the whole project. But we need to test the orchestrator this time, definitely.
Sure. So let me create the placeholder and we can keep on adding the points. Yeah, I'll do that.
Yeah, and I also wanted to add that, I mean, we need also to put the security features as part of the release, not only the one feature, but we need also to see which security features are important for 1.9 release and make sure that we try to include them, even if they are not developed.
I will work on a list of things that we want to emphasize and ship.
Okay. Yep. Thanks.
One extra sentence. I expect the next release to be a bit more complicated from a technical perspective. So I just want to advertise that tomorrow is a show and tell meeting about the current checklist, what needs to be done during the release process.
Yes, I think that will be wonderful, Nils. I think let's walk through it, and yeah. If there is any major hurdle, we'll try to discuss it beforehand. Yeah.
Make sure that this is recorded session tomorrow, because at least I'm not going to be able to join. I'm in Barcelona on the Mobile World Congress, so I will not be able to join. But let's record it and let's have it so we can review it later.
Should we record today? I wonder about maybe recording today also. What are people's thoughts?
Yes.
You mean this meeting?
Yeah.
It's being recorded.
Yeah,
Oh,
it's already recorded.
Thank you. I apologize.
Yeah, and the show and tell tomorrow is also set up to record, so no worries there.
Thank you.
So I'll take that action item to create the placeholder, and based on the feedback, I'll keep on adding the tasks. I think that's all from my side.
All right, great. Then next, we'll pass it to Lucas for a security roadmap.
Okay. So I've sent out a reading, and I think we should probably just start by, so let me ask, have people taken a look at that? Should we make time to read? Let me put the link in here.
Should there be a link on the Confluence page? It seems to be broken for me.
Oh. Okay, well, so I'm posting it to Slack. I'm sorry, to Zoom. And I will just open it in the screen share, and let me make sure. Is that broken on? Oh, because there's that tiny URL link. Yeah, there was some kind of confluence bug where it was breaking the link. We couldn't click through. I'm not sure what the story was. There we go. So I'll take a minute more just to let people skim this. Okay, I'm going to jump in. So the context of this conversation is the discussion 2 weeks ago on funding after the transition and what we're doing after the transition and how we're doing it. And Jordan requested, and I think we had consensus behind, small fundable units that are incremental. And so what I've done here is break down the work into something like that. And there are different ways we can discuss these. One thing we'll talk about is whether we want to take on any one item. We'll talk about what it takes to do one and what it costs to do each one. And that's going to kind of open a can of worms around everything we fund and how we approach that. So in ways, this is sort of the first time we've had one of these conversations. And we're going to figure out how to do it, by doing it today. So this document kind of goes to the question of how are we staying on top of our security work, which is slightly different than some other features in the sense that waiting for volunteer hands to show up is has greater impact and does greater harm. And so I specifically want to advocate that we be active and take these. The first item is a ticket opened by Moritz particularly about Dependabot alerts. He prioritized the critical items, and it's a simple thing to talk about anyway. And we should talk about a vote to fund this work. Let's go through everything and then come back to individual approvals. But I want to add just that these critical upgrade alerts are part of the below metrics and contribute to them and are in scope for that as well. Before I go on, should we discuss this one item? Okay, I'll take that as a move on. Sorry, go ahead.
Yeah, I think we have gone through it, but maybe just on a high level, if you can.
Like talk about
Give a
what's
overview. Yes, give an overview. Yeah.
These are always library upgrades that were not mergeable, that require human review to figure out how to do them. Dependabot auto generates PRs to upgrade libraries with known vulnerabilities, and it has some limits on that, like it won't span a major upgrade level because that would create breaking changes. And also sometimes there are complexities that require a human to figure out, like there's a circular upgrade path or there are conflicting upgrades. So the work in these is usually kind of unknotting some spaghetti of dependencies. In fact, it's always some crazy spaghetti of dependencies. Once in a while, there's an unmaintained upstream project, which actually we have too many of those. We have underlying exposure to one-man projects that are not well taken care of, and not necessarily that we are using, but that's something we're using. And those things are sometimes abandoned, and they create big headaches for us. So that's what this is.
And I think in these dependabot alerts, which mostly cover Go, the complicated thing is that we have a lot of Go modules that interact with each other. So if you do an update at one place, it might no longer be consistent with other parts. So I think the biggest complexity is integration testing and checking that everything still works together. And I don't know if we have sufficient CI coverage to do that with confidence via CI. And also collecting together multiple of these dependabot things to a consistent dependency set, I think is a bigger chore that takes some work.
But I think that when we get lucky and the upgrades don't span a major version, that would be a breaking change, then the question is just whether or not there are conflicting dependencies. But whenever it spans a breaking change, and assuming that the libraries we use are properly using semantic versioning, we can usually figure it out. But then there's going to be 2 or 3 that have negative ROI. They aren't worth that much. They're really hard. So usually, as Moritz says, some will be hard and some will be easy. Okay, so let me jump to the next item, security metrics.
No, sorry, because I'm on a mobile, so I have problem to switch the microphone from time to time. A question on this. So is this the effort of 1 to 2 weeks for all the upgrades, or it's 1 to 2 weeks to understand which upgrades needs to be done, and then the upgrades are going to be done separately?
It's to do fix the ones that are easy to fix and identify the ones with that are just not tractable in the short term. So like 1 to 2 weeks, or probably 2 weeks of just sort of sitting there and doing the grunt work of running upgrades and figuring out why things are broken. Will cover the low-hanging fruit and lead to issues for the things that are weird and cause integration test problems, for example. Like I imagine there'll be 2 left that are really hard.
Okay, thanks.
Okay, so now a conversation about badging. So the vision here is that there are sort of well-known metrics for open source projects, and those metrics they have 2 sorts of value. One is that they help projects like ours work on the right things and the things that are most important. And the other is that they allow us to communicate to the market that we're, taking care of business. And so we get a marketing benefit, sort of an adoption benefit, and we shape our roadmap in positive ways. So this is what I mean when I say these achievements are not empty. That has to do with, the actual benefit of doing them. But there is a definite marketing part as well. So there are 3 of these. We should talk about each one. For each one, what we'll do is kind of the same thing as in the dependabot discussion. We'll do the low-hanging fruit and then get organized towards the stuff that's hard. Sometimes it's really quick to run through the metric and figure out where you stand. Like I actually ran the security scorecard last week. And sometimes it's hard. And So there are 3 of these. We're going to go through each one of these. And I propose to time box the work so it doesn't, right? This isn't an indefinite commitment. It's like, let's knock down the first pass, know where we stand, and do the easy stuff, and then plan on what comes next. That's hard. Before I move on, what are people's thoughts on this part of the discussion?
I mean, my opinion, as I shared it last time, is that this is very important for the project. So this is my opinion on the badges. This shows to the end users, to the commercial end users, that they are safe to deploy this in their network.
I think that even just saying that we're doing this shows deployers that we're serious. Sorry, go ahead.
Yeah, definitely. Just saying that we are taking care of these badges and that we are monitoring, and then we know where are we. It's adding ample amount of assurance to the end user. And then when we manage to arrive to a very high score on this, because in the beginning we will not be on a very high score, definitely. Nobody took care of these things. But saying that we are working on it, it brings at least 60 to 70% of the value of the badge.
Right. I think we're going to talk about the details of these, and there's a lot of substance in the details of them. In particular, there are going to be some metrics that have a negative ROI. Maximilian has also worked on applying these metrics, and sometimes they're really hard and maybe not that valuable. So we're going to need to discover those items and have good judgment about things that don't make sense. The most widely recognized badge is the best practices badge. This covers not only security, although it does have an important security component, but all sorts of facets of a well-run open source project. It could be, some parts are really easy. At least they're just paperwork. You have to understand how you're doing, but other parts are actually quite demanding and really impactful. In particular, the security metrics can be tough. So before I go on, what are people's thoughts on the best practices badge? So let me go here. That is this one. Maybe I'll start with I will share this link into chat.
So one question is, how much of this needs a one-time work versus how much is ongoing work is needed for this kind of activity?
You're right that there are both. When the badge requires some kind of indefinite, kind of ongoing commitment, they say, show that you have a process established. But the badge we're going to discuss next, the Open Chain Security Assurance badge, is more about workflows, and the approach they take is to, actually, I'm going to put on my video, and the approach they take is to kind of require well-run projects to have that together, to show, well, we're able to do this on an ongoing basis, and, for example, consistently respond in a timely way.
Okay, so the values that you have in the document, those are for the initial work, or is it for ongoing activity?
It is. Oh, I see what you're saying. That is for the initial work. So we'll, work through the thing, knock down the easy ones, and then get organized for the hard ones. So we'll know our score.
Okay. All right. Thanks.
Let me share my desktop again, put this together. Okay, so you might want to read this. There's a lot between the lines of this thing. It's really meaty. Some things are tiny, some things are huge. Next item, the Open Chain Security Assurance Specification. This is the newest one, and I think is the one that is hardest to make the case for. The open chain project, I imagine, does everybody know about open chain and what it is as a whole?
I don't know.
Okay. So open chain is a way to get your work streams together. It kind of shows that your open source project is grown up and is well made. And they have this kind of long list of things that you would want to do. Like, for example, do you have a license? Have you selected a license? And have you done the work to make sure that all the modules you're using are compliant with your license? And is the person doing that work skilled enough to pull it off, and so on? And it's a really useful tool, especially for corporate open source, where they're coming from another world and don't have those skills. And that is an ISO standard, and they have now built one that is related to security work streams, and it is not yet an ISO standard, and that is the one that we're discussing today. People are good with where we stand? So this is
for me.
great. So a lot of this is really just run through the checklist. How are you doing? And then you identify things that are harder. Like, for example, this asks, are you doing security testing? And if you're not, you have to be. And then that adds to your testing resources, which so that is the open chain part of this. What can I add? So let's discuss this particular item before we move on. And I'll take silence as a one.
Yeah, I'm still thinking about Lucas, we already have discussed private chat a little bit.
Awesome.
I'm still conflicted by limited fund and thinking that it might be more helpful to push towards fixing the security holes that we have already identified. That might be dependable, but I think there's way more, and we have a backlog. And this exercise to identify best practices that we could satisfy is for sure helpful and good. But I'm also wondering with the is the outcome in the end just a list of you need to invest that to have a complete security process, or does it actually fix security issues? And that's where I'm conflicted.
I share your analysis, and I think that as a team or as a community, we have to figure out how to set that balance between. Well, okay, so the outputs of the work are marketing, right? The ability to message and hopefully encourage adoption. Number two, fixing the things that are relatively easy that we haven't done yet and that are important. And then number three, getting organized, like organizing the roadmap around the things that are important that we're not doing yet. Given the existing list of tasks that are really kind of engineering, some of those would be pulled in and would be highlighted and would get more resources because they're important, and others would be de-emphasized and maybe get less resources because they're not so relevant to this. But you're right that in doing that whole process that I just described, that we wouldn't be sitting down and working on things that are, for example, known issues unless they were flagged within a metric. And, you know, we should figure out how we want to invest our resources. One thing is we just would have to write a proposal for funding and put it into this document. So, right, like we want to do those things. We just need to put it into one of these items and then vote to fund the work to get it done.
Yeah, I think there are some critical security items that would also deserve to be listed here with how expensive they are to fix, and if they are critical, if no one is doing them, and I think they might have higher priority compared to a new badge, a new I don't know, it's new processes. If we already have these items, that's just my personal conflict that I see with these three proposals to have CII badge or the open chain certification.
I'll bet you that doing those things is something that we just like. We should identify those things and, you know, create attention for them, and then put them into the funding document so we can make sure that we're getting the work done. Because I think that's real. And in particular, getting back to the conversation about 1.9, there's going to be things that we need to squeeze into 1.9 and we need to fill.
Yeah, and I mean, to continue on what Max was saying, I mean, for me, both of these things have value. Definitely fixing the security issues, especially critical one, has the biggest value, but also having understanding that we are compliant, or that we are working to be compliant to certain standards has its own value. Now we can, I mean, we don't need to move for all three badges at the same time. Yeah. We can say, yeah, we can decide to move only for one badge and focus the rest of the effort to fix if we have critical issues. And it's up to us to decide and to vote what is the biggest priority for all of us. You know, so I mean, yeah, this is my view on this one. So it's not far from what Max is saying, but it's a little bit clarification that both things should have value.
I mean, well, there's a metric that asks, are you closing known vulnerabilities? Right, and to answer yes on that, you want to go do these items that Max is talking about. We have a bunch of little tickets we need to be working on. And,
yeah, I agree.
So, you know, the metrics kind of allow us to talk about good things we're doing to our market, and they allow us to make sure that we're doing the right things, but they shouldn't distract from doing those things. I just agree, and I think we have to figure out. So one thing we might decide to do as a community is just, you know, authorize work in each one of these, right, one by one.
Just one last thought. I think the comparison is something like this proposal is top down to from top down understand employ processes and try to be secure. And my thought that I wanted to bring in is bottom up, try to be secure, and then try to see what's left to also market that we are secure.
Yeah. What point? Yeah, I mean, just yes. A lot of those things did come out of earlier work kind of around metrics that helped us structure what we were doing, but just yes, I agree. Let's go over like the breadth of this thing. We're going to run out of time, and I'm sorry for absorbing it. And I may be not leaving enough oxygen for the remaining items in the agenda. So Kendall, please, you know, raise a flag if I'm overusing my time. So the third metric is the OpenSSF security scorecard. This is the one that is most directly relevant. The security scorecard is quite hard, but we actually should have a better score than we have. The automated testing is not seeing some things that we've pulled off. Like this 5.3 is too low. It probably should be like a 7. And it is extremely valuable. For example, when it calls for signed releases, you know what? That's also level 2. And yeah, we should be doing that to the extent that we're building artifacts. We should be signing them. But signing artifacts means managing keys. It's not a trivial project. So let's have a quick conversation about fuzzing and then come back to up or down votes on funding for each of these. People are good? Okay. The Google Fuzz project, OSS Fuzz project, has created a bounty for fuzzing open source projects, right? It's a project. OSS Fuzz is about security of the overall open source ecosystem. And as a result of their bounty, an independent developer came in, this guy, Arhoon, and implemented the basic framework of Google's OSS Fuzz for Magma. And he did it in a way that was really dodgy. And, I think all of our alerts went off. But I investigated him and talked to the OSS Fuzz folks and found that he's for real. It wouldn't surprise me if he's evil, and we should assume he's evil. But this work item is actually very useful, and it's like he's a good C coder and did something useful for us. And we should put in a little bit of time to vet his code so that we make sure there's nothing evil in there and get it to merge. And this does also count against our metrics, like it's specifically called out in the security scorecard. That's one of the things dragging us down here. So what do people say about how we should proceed next?
Can you explain what the scope of this fuzzing is? What does it test? Where does it test?
The fuzzing is it injects input that tests boundary conditions at the binary level, usually. The things he contributed are mainly Go, and there are 2 parts to his contribution. The first is a harness to make OSS Fuzz run in the context of Magma. And the second is some test data files. The harness is kind of template code from Google that I need to understand. I've started reading it. I get it, but I'll have to probably ask for help from other people to really understand how it would fit in our build and our testing and so on. And then the test data is this binary stuff that is generated to, explore what happens under some boundary condition, like nulls or non-ASCII data and so on. And if that's binary, and it's deliberately kind of malicious stuff that we need to stick into a repo somewhere without exposing ourselves. That's a thing that makes me pretty paranoid. And then when you extend fuzzing, there are 2 ways that you do it. You add more test data files, and you adapt the harness to cover different functions. It's hard engineering and also really impactful.
Yeah, but the harness goes out when we build release code. That one is injected only as a test case, correct?
Yeah.
So it's not actually delivered. The binary, the malicious code and the harness, it's not delivered into let's say production artifacts. It's only delivered in it's only implemented in the test artifacts which we are generating, correct?
Yeah, I agree. And I think that that's why OSS Fuzz felt like this bounty wasn't just going to be a path to attacking projects like ours.
Okay. Then we have less, let's say, risk merging, but yeah, we need to go through the code. So I'm not aware which PR is this. The PR is open, correct?
The PR number is 14966.
Can somebody put it in the chat?
Yeah.
Sorry, I'm on my mobile.
And it looks like it tests some Gateway C core OAI code. So it's it seems to test some parts of the OAI subfolder.
This is it's like introducing unit testing in a way. It can go, there'll be a lot of fuzz tests over time. This will get us started. I think this is really impactful and really valuable. Let me say, Magma has a huge point of vulnerability or like attack angle, and that there's so much binary code, C++ and Go, and then the underlying protocols are complicated. Like this is a challenge for us in particular. So I think fuzzing will be really valuable to us, at least to put our foot on that path and get started.
I mean, the proposal is just to go and review this code and try to make sure that the code is safe
and merge
it, correct?
Yeah, and try to get it to run.
Yeah, I mean, try to get it integrated into our test cases, try to see what it is and merge it. So we will not develop additional functionality on this fuzz in this proposal.
Yeah, not unless it's super easy, which I doubt.
All right, fine, if it is something trivial, for sure.
Yeah.
Okay.
So how should we approach the vote on funding? Like we kind of have to figure out this process.
So, I mean, I would, because this is the first time we are doing this, I would just put a question to everybody and put that question on a vote. How do you want to vote for these things? Do you want to vote on this meeting, or you want to have time to analyze them and then vote on the subsequent meeting? And this is open question to all members of the TSC.
Kendall, is there a guidance?
It is however you would like it to be done. The voting can be on a meeting. We do have a quorum. We also have a Slack group to do voting there if we want to do it offline, or we can do it via email. It's what is best for the community and what y'all want to do.
Can you say how other projects approach funding choices?
Yeah, so what I've seen is, so when I've worked with other projects, their discretionary funding is not as large as this project's, because they're set up with the top level board of directors governance. So it's usually a little bit different just because there is that board that usually makes most of the financial decisions. But when they do have to do some kind of voting for, say, using money for a certain tool or whatever, they do it usually do it offline in like an email or Slack or something to have it in a written form, just to always have that data somewhere documented. But we can get it documented either way by doing it in a recorded session here or via Slack offline.
My recommendation is to use email, because if we're going to go to the free version of Slack, someday the history will be erased, right? Or whatever. So recommendation is to do it on email as a proposal to TSC.
Yeah, recommendation is accepted. So I second that one.
I can't move it. You have to move it.
Yeah, sorry, I'm moving it. Then I need somebody to second it. Sorry.
I second.
Then may I also recommend that we give some time for people to read it. We announce it reasonably widely through Slack, and then give 3 to 4 days for people to review it. But do take the vote offline so that we can burn up time in TSC meeting. Suggestion again.
And then do we want to, how fine grained do we want the vote to be? I think there are 5 items in this, right? So it'd be buzzing, the 3 metrics, and dependabots. We want it to be 5 items that we vote up or down, or just all of them?
Are they interdependent?
They are roughly independent, yes.
Then
I think
my
if they're independent, then I would do each of them separately, since you have them each separated within funding too.
Yeah. The security scorecard shouldn't happen without the best practices badge. So that one is dependent, but can be separate.
I think Kendall's suggestion is correct. To the extent that they're independent, we should put up independent granularity.
Yeah, I mean, this was my request as well last time, to have it as granular as possible, so we can independently vote for all of these things. We should not be, I mean, put ourselves in a position to vote for big packages. And I think that this proposal is more or less, I mean, adhering to this recommendation of mine from last time. So I think we already have it. Apart from the badges, we need to separate the badges, but the rest I see it as granular enough. But shall we move to vote for the motion which I have put first?
I say aye.
Yeah, all in favor, say aye.
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 Any opposed? Any abstains? All right,
I
the
was
motion carries.
distracted, but
Oh,
probably fine. Yeah,
okay. I thought I saw your mic move. I thought you said. Thanks, Max. All right, so the motion carries.
Okay, then I put the second recommendation from some as a motion to allow at minimum 3 days for people to be able to read before we vote. Is somebody seconding?
We don't really need to vote on that unless you feel it is warranted.
Let's have it as a process.
Let me add an extension to that there should be a time limit, because we have to get started in these things, like they're sitting there waiting for us. So
yeah, there should be a time limit.
it has to be done by next Monday.
Yeah, how about we open it for review for the next 3 days, like Jordan suggested, and then have the vote come in before Friday or Saturday so that we can move forward on next TSC meeting.
Cool.
Okay.
Yeah, so as I said, I'm putting the motion for vote. Anybody likes to second? So the motion is we will have minimum 3 days for review and maximum of 7 days for the voting. So we will have 3 days minimum to review, and we need to vote in maximum of 7 days from the TSC. So to meet actually 6 days. So to be able to have it done before the next TSC meeting.
I second.
Okay. All in favor, say aye.
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 Any opposed? Any abstains? Okay, the motion carries. I will send out an email to the TSC voting members. I'll do Wednesday afternoon US time. So then that will give folks 3 days if we're including Saturday to, Saturday and Sunday, get the voting done. Does that sound good?
That is awesome.
Yep.
Let me point out that there's one thing that we are not voting on just yet, and that is the work Maxim flagged on just existing tickets, right? We have lots of little engineering projects that we know about. We have to figure out how to organize those and fund them. So that's coming next.
Let's start putting them as proposals like this. I mean, this was the whole idea behind having it in very granular. So let's start putting them as proposals.
It's not sufficient to just create a proposal. We also need someone that is doing that development work and fixing the complex and critical issue. So someone needs to come with a proposal that has the technical background to fix these very in-depth security issues.
Yeah.
Well,
Yeah,
I don't
maybe-
know how we can do that.
I mean, yes, somebody needs to come up with proposal to fix it, or we can come up with bounty and say we offer this bounty for somebody from the community to fix it. So one of these two ways.
How about in the upcoming security meeting, which I think is on Wednesday, we start working through these issues and figure out how to get them into the pipeline so we, implement them.
Okay. Do we have 5 minutes for the last agenda item?
I'm sorry to leave so little.
That's okay. I think that one, who put that one in there? I don't have a name.
I have put it in there.
Oh,
Didn't
okay.
I add my name to it? Oh, sorry. I'm
No worries.
now my name is added. Yeah, the last item. There's Shubham's nice Magma Galaxy project that gets mentioned rather frequently in our Slack as recommended way to install Magma, and so it appears frequently, and that feels wrong for me for something that is not core part of Magma, and I would say we should try to get it officially maintained and officially part of Magma if it's a used and useful part of Magma. And Shubham, you might be steamrolled by that. I haven't talked with you before that, but I think it's if something is a preferred way of installing, and if the community tends to use it and goes to that, we need to adopt it as a community, and we need to go the direction to pull that into the core project.
How about we review the guts of it in the next engineering or CI meeting? Like, how about presentation? Sorry.
I don't know. For me, at the moment, I want to ask is if the TSC is sharing the opinion that we have, that it might be good to resolve that thing, that there is that Shubham's solution that is not officially part of the Magma project is becomes a dominant solution. And is that something that we should act on, or is that not? Am I wrong with that?
So let me give my opinion. I'm not aware of this particular solution, but I will give my opinion on the principle. And then we can see how this solution, I mean, I will take some time offline to see how this solution fits in. But if something is contributing to the way that the project, the easy to use the project for the end users, or it's contributing to the documentation, or it's adding additional features, definitely we would like, and it's required by the community, or it's used by the community, definitely we want to make it mainstream as a principle. So, I mean, I need to see how this solution of Shubham fits into this, but if this is something that is contributing into easy to use to the project, I will be for.
Max, may I have a quick question?
Yep.
Actually, it's for Max and Shubham both.
Oh.
Is this a completed project or is this a proposal?
I think it's a way of deploying Magma, but that's the extent that I understand of it. Shubham, you would be the expert there. But
so I can add just a sec. Yeah. So when previously we in the official documentation, we only have one method, that is the AWS, and that's what Facebook initially targeted. And that's how we don't have any other deployment project now on our official documentation also. And this is just a side project which was heavily asked by the community, because most of the telco companies have their own cloud. They don't need AWS. So that's why I make this. That's it. If community wants this to be on the mainline, then we can add it.
Yeah, it's, I think for us as a upstream project, if the community steers towards a way of deploying that we don't understand or that we don't use ourselves, or that's not the best case. And especially if then support questions come up and with how do I this or why is that not working? And if they are using something that is not officially part, that gets messy, especially if we recommend it in our Slack. And that's a state that I would like to resolve.
So in Slack, it's an open community, so anybody can recommend. But official remains is in the Magma core documentation. That is the official thing.
Yeah, I agree. In Slack, everybody can recommend things. Like it's a community, so even somebody who is not on these meetings can come up and recommend something. But if we see that this thing it's useful, it's our duty to take it and move it forward. I mean, this is the role of the technical committee at the end of the day on this open source project. If we see that something is very useful for the community, although it's not originating from, I mean, in this case, it's originated from some of us, but even if it is not originating from anybody of us, it's our duty to take it and move it forward because it's in the interest of the community.
Yeah, but also we need to keep our scope small. Maybe we need to deprecate something else in favor of that. But yeah, that's I think we hit the time box.
Yeah.
But yeah.
I'm just going to add a quick opinion. I think this is community input, and that's the best kind. So we should try hard to make this fit.
Yeah. So, but I don't have any technical understanding, and we are over the time box.
Yeah, so I suggest to continue this discussion on the next TSC. Meanwhile, we can go and become more familiar with what is this specific item. But yes, I mean, we stepped out of the time box. So
yeah, sure. Maybe you can present it in a DevOps meeting or something like that.
Yeah, sure. So we can set up a meeting this week, and if we have another show and tell meeting tomorrow, so if we like get some time, I can show it there. It will only take around 15 minutes.
Yes, sounds good. Okay, so we have a follow-up.
Kendall, who's coordinating the show and tell sessions?
That's the TNG team, Nils and Max and them. Yep.
So Max Chess's recommendation didn't want to take on Guillaume, I think if I'm pronouncing his name right, from Canonical, had a snap that he wanted to present. I don't think it's going to take a full session. Maybe we can combine Shubham's coordination and the snap presentation at the same time on show and tell. Just a recommendation.
Sure.
Yeah, I mean, if we are creating new session, I mean, yeah, definitely we can create new session. Even for the show and tell, I mean, everybody who has something can come up and do the show and tell. We will just announce it to the community. So it's I mean, the show and tell which TNG is doing is for the transfer to the communities. So this one it's additional, so we can do it together with Shubham's at any time. We just find a proper time slot, not to overload people with too many things in the same week. But I think we can find time slot this week or early next week to do this with Canonical and Shubham.
Okay.
All right, sounds good. I know we're over time, so thanks everyone. Have a great day.
Yeah,
Bye.
thanks everyone. Thank you. Bye.
Bye.